This is Lewis Hart for Boxing Social in association with Empire Fight Store and Forged Irish Stout. Delighted to be joined with Nicola Barke, new Queensberry signing. How's things? How's everything been?
Yeah, things have been really good. Obviously, still riding on a high from being signed by Queensberry and Frank Warren. So yeah, couldn't couldn't complain.
Absolutely. Well, we'll just get into that. Being signed by Frank Warren, and obviously now with SJAM as well. From this like period of your career, how good does it feel for you, and how important is it now that you're really getting this push that you deserve?
You know what? I am like so grateful for it. And people who, well, aren't like professional athletes or boxers themselves don't see sort of the hard graft. Um, when you're fighting on the smaller hall shows where you've got that massive pressure to sell a whole number of tickets, and it's almost your ticket sales and your fan base become your own support in terms of being able to get out and sort of make a name for yourself. So to have the support of SJAM from a management perspective, and then obviously Frank Warren, Queensberry Promotion from a promoter perspective, and then on top of that, TNT Sports,
Yeah.
you couldn't ask for much more to really help give you that platform to showcase your skill. It's what every single fighter wants, and just hopes and wishes that someone, can see them, spot their talent, and give them that opportunity. So yeah, it's great.
Definitely. Does it feel better for yourself where you started on the small hall shows, starting on that, having that hard graft and now being rewarded for that? Does that feel like a little bit nice that you know you've been rewarded for the hard work that you've had to do for selling tickets and all that sort of stuff?
Oh, absolutely. But you know what? It's not just even from boxing, because I've only been in professional boxing for 2 years. And before that, it was hard graft and the multitude
Yeah.
of other sort of martial art disciplines I've done. So it definitely feels from like the very first time I started my martial arts journey to where I am now, which I want to say is over 10 years
Yeah.
just.
Yeah.
It's all of that in totality which has sort of paid off and made it worth it.
Absolutely. We'll get into the martial arts journey in a minute, but I did just want to say, you did tell me about off camera about dealing with an injury. Has that been quite frustrating to deal with?
Yes. Yeah, no, so I fractured my foot, which isn't the worst injury, I'll be honest,
Yeah.
because I've just got a walking boot. I'm grateful it's not a cast and it's not crutches.
Mhm.
So I still managed to sort of train upper body, but I do just sit in the car like when I'm going to the gym to be like, you're gonna look like a bit of a plonker walking in the gym with this, but like
Yeah.
this is just what you have to do. So like go do it with a smile on
Yeah.
your face. Just don't worry about everyone's like random stares to your like
Yeah.
foot. Uh, so it's been quite entertaining. Um,
Yeah.
and it's given me the opportunity to focus on lots of different things too.
With obviously your martial arts journey, you deal with numerous different injuries, especially sort of previous stuff you've been doing, very brutal kind of stuff. Is it sort of frustrating? Is this frustrating to sort of deal with injuries, or have you learned with it over the time that it's all just a process and it's just that's how you have to deal with it?
Definitely the latter. It's a process, and I think physical injuries are far easier to deal with and overcome because there's a plan, right? You've got this is the rehab stage, this is the rest stage, this is the rebuild physio phase. You've got a timeline. What I think is really difficult is when you have like those mental injuries per se. I want to say, 3 years ago, I was in a car crash and had really bad PTSD. And I found that harder than any injury I've ever sustained because no one could tell me this is what you have to do and you'll be better.
Yeah.
It was like these multitude of things may help and we can't tell you when.
Yeah.
It almost felt like hot luck. So physical injuries like feel
Yeah.
like a breeze in comparison.
Definitely. Just sort of to touch on you talking about the car crash there, dealing with that adversity, and you said that was like the worst thing that ever happened. Getting through that now and actually having a career of professional boxing, do you feel like more like that your mental strength is, so much bigger because of that, and you got through that? You feel like, I'm sort of untouchable in a sense.
Incredibly so. It's just that resilience. Um, and yeah, it helped me grow like internally tenfold
Yeah.
more than I think any other physical injury would give
Mhm.
me. And it's given me this appreciation that when I get physical injuries, I'm like, oh, great. Like, what's the plan? And you just follow that and, you know, you're good. So it's helped in a multitude of different ways.
It's quite a deep question, but do you feel like for yourself now going through that and going through that adversity, you have more like a greater appreciation for life in a sense, away from boxing? You appreciate life because when you do come close to potential morality, you look at you appreciate life a lot more.
Yeah, I do. Um, when I was going through that really dark period, there, the thing which I recognized was really unhealthy is that the thoughts that kept coming through my mind were like, well, what's the point? Like, what's the point in trying to be really successful if in like a snap of a second, your life could just be ended?
Yeah.
And it took me a long time to sort of grapple with that and sort of to change my perspective to be like, because life can
Mhm.
literally be taken away at any point, like absolutely make sure you make the most of it. Um, and wanting to spend so much more time with family and friends because it's just like, well, now you never know how long you've got left, and making sure that you completely commit to your dreams,
Mhm.
because I
Yeah.
never want to be able to look back and regret not having done that. So yeah, it has changed my perspective on life.
Yeah, absolutely, definitely. We'll move on to sort of a more brighter topics. Training in the Steel City gym now, where with Grant Smith, and obviously managing stable mates as well with guys like Florio Marku, Lerrone Richards, Janae Boston. That gym is so thriving at the moment, probably one of the best in the UK. To be a part of that environment must be incredible for you.
It's fantastic, honestly. Like, I could not have asked or wished for a better team. They've been absolutely sound. You've got, in addition to that, you've got Sonny Edwards and Dalton Smith. We have Grant Smith and Pierce Gudgeon as both of the coaches at the gym. And lots of people know Grant Smith, and I feel like lots of
Yeah,
people should also know Pierce, because it's both of their ability to really, like, I want to say protect the fighters, but in the best way, in terms of making sure that as an athlete, you're kept healthy, and your health is sort of put at the forefront of all of the decision making. But not only that, they're so open to having new people join the team, so
yeah.
making sure that we have like those novel elements to training sort of level up in terms of mindset coaches and um, you know being open to that, I think, is a really important thing. And working with a strength and conditioning coach, these are all things that just help build and elevate everyone's success. So, you're completely right. Success breeds success. And to be in that environment day in, day out, where their sort of focus and dedication and tenacity to each and every fighter is just like second to none.
Do you feel like you feel the benefit of when you see guys like Sonny Edwards, who is a world champion, he's fighting in the biggest fight of his career coming up? When you see guys like that train, guys like Dalton as well, do you sort of see, this is what it takes to, really be at the top level?
Yeah, of course. And like watching them train, it's almost like training amongst your like inspiration and role models,
Mhm.
So you have your own drive, your own fire and energy, and then looking around to see like, wow, those are the heights that one night you'll be able to reach. Like,
Yeah.
to have that motivation day in, day out, it's incredible.
Did want to touch on Sonny Edwards. Obviously, he's fighting Bam Rodriguez in the biggest fight of his career. Obviously, he's got a lot of UK people behind him. I'm sure you're supporting him as well, thinking that he will get the job done against Bam.
Yeah, definitely. Like, of course, I'm not going to support anyone else, but
Yeah.
Sonny
How do you think it
through
goes?
100%. Yeah,
Yeah. How do you
definitely.
think?
I believe in his ability, and I believe in his craft and ringmanship, and his ring IQ. Um, will 100% carry him through.
Yeah, definitely. And you just what you touching on with Grant as well, and obviously sorry, the others, Grant and that gym in itself. Um, you mentioned about the S&C coach and the knowledge behind it. Is it important that now, where we look at athletes, we look at sort of people, that it's a lot more than just training. It's all the stuff you do outside. You talk about strength and conditioning coaches. Is that education of how athletes develop and the game develops with it, and not sort of stuck in the old ways?
Yeah, that's right. And the boxing will always be your bread and butter. That will always be the most important thing. But as you sort of climb the ranks, and want to get to that elite and top level, it's those small percentages that you can really, really, like, improve. And, you know, the boxing will always be your bread and butter. That will always be the most important thing. But as you sort of climb the ranks and want to get to that elite and top level, it's those small percentages that you can really, really, like, improve. that make that big difference. So making sure you've got a really sound team in your strength, your conditioning, your nutritionist, and your mindset, all of those things over time add up. And so it's better to have it now in your career, as opposed to trying to switch everything on at the last minute when you're already there. You're building the right habits to take you to the top from the get-go. And I just think that's really important.
Absolutely. Well, you just mentioned about your martial arts journey there, and it didn't always start with boxing. I did speak to Shane a little bit and Harry. They both told me about the background of yourself. If you just want to explain how it all first started for you, feel free to.
Yeah, so like flipping all the way back. So I first started in ballet, which wasn't even martial arts. I did that for
Yeah.
about 16 years. I danced for the Royal National Ballet, but it wasn't my passion. And I think my parents just like seeing their little girl in like a
Yeah.
ballet tutu, ballet shoes. So when I mustered up the courage to say, like, look, mum, dad, this isn't for me, like, let's try something totally different. I first started my martial arts journey in Taekwondo.
Yeah.
I remember my first session, I turned up and like punches and kicks were coming my way, and I was like shutting
Yeah.
my eyes and like shirking my body. I was like, no, this was meant to be my calling. Like,
Yeah.
I didn't
Yeah.
enjoy ballet. Like, this was meant to be my passion. But I made such a song and dance about it. I was like, look, you're going to stick at this for like at least 6 months just to say you've done it. And then I just fell in love with the sport. I started competing. I got the opportunity to fight at the World Championships over in Canada, for Taekwondo. Again, I had a fractured foot at the time.
Oh,
So I was like, mum, dad, friends, family, coaches. I was like, no one waste your money flying to Canada. Like, I'm
yeah.
clearly not going to win. I just want to go compete. So
Yeah.
I jumped on the plane, flew over with no team, no supporters, and then by some miracle managed to win with my
Yeah.
fractured foot. On the phone to mum, I was like, hey, so I've just won. And she was like fuming but happy. She was like mad that she wasn't there, but she was obviously like super happy
Yeah.
that I'd won. And ever since then, she's like come to every single fight I've ever had, whether that be moving into kickboxing. So I won a British title in kickboxing, and then I moved over to Lethway. So
Yeah.
Lethway is the sport that people don't know, but it's like incredibly brutal. It's sort of informally known as Burmese Boxing, and it
Yeah.
allows headbutts, punches, kicks, knees, elbows, and it's all with no gloves.
Yeah.
And I got to world number 2 in that sport. But yeah, I think I've never been more terrified
Yeah.
walking out
Yeah.
for that fight than anything in my life ever before. And I think when I'd won and they raised my hand, I wasn't only just happy that I'd sort of won, I think I was like very happy to be alive. Like the
Yeah.
euphoria just lasted for weeks.
Yeah, definitely. But obviously with the brutality of that and the pressure that comes with that, when it comes to transitioning with boxing, how did you find that transition? Because you're going obviously boxing is can be brutal in itself, but you're limited to one discipline where you're not actually you're limited to nothing when it comes to Burmese boxing. You can sort of do whatever you want. So dealing with that, was that a hard transition for you, or did you find it easier in a sense because like oh, I've actually I can only focus on my hands now. I don't have to focus about someone's head coming in the way or their knee or elbows or anything like that.
Yeah, that's so true. So people often see like the martial art history I've done, and they're like, oh, of course the transition will be seamless. But you're
Yeah,
right. It's a completely different martial art, boxing in that sense. And there's a whole bunch of different rules. You're not able to use half the limbs that you're able to use in
yeah,
the other sports that I've practiced. So that transition was a challenge. It's a case of changing your stance, changing those habits.
yeah.
And it's one thing to be able to do it in the ring. And,
Mhm.
sorry, it's one thing to be able to do it in the gym, but it's like another thing, like when the pressure's there, when the lights are there,
Yeah,
uh, to, keep to those boxing habits, which have only just started coming through, as opposed
yeah,
to reverting back to all the martial arts you trained for, 8 years.
yeah,
So it has been a real skill, and I think people underestimate the amount of time and effort and energy it takes to sort of change your fighting style
Yeah.
to a new discipline.
Definitely. And when it comes to the mental side as well, you talked about going to Canada with the world champions a bit and winning a British title in kickboxing. Do you feel like, when it comes to the time where you get to that level in boxing, to the top level, you feel like, you know what, all these things I've already had the mental reps for it, I've already had the experience for it as well.
Yeah, I love that term, mental reps.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, and it's true. Like that's banked experience that's just going to carry me through and help me for those big nights to come. Um, Obviously, I'm still sort of building up my boxing portfolio, my boxing experience. But it's good to know at the back of my mind when it comes, I will be able to step up because I've done
Yeah.
it before in different martial arts. It's now a case of like getting that skill and technique to the same level.
Yeah, absolutely. One thing I did want to touch on, I did want to touch back on the Burmese boxing because it is something that is sort of so crazy to me. What was sort of the craziest experiences, whether it be training, fighting, or anything like that? Like, what is that whole experience in a way, in a sense?
Uh, Pretty comical actually. I think it didn't really set in. Like when I was in the
Yeah,
UK preparing for the fight, it just all seemed like a bit of a laugh. So we'd be practicing headbutts on
yeah,
pads,
that's
which you can't not laugh when you're doing
yeah,
that. And I remember being with my coach at the time, and he was like, "So I need you to grit your teeth. This is a part of the head you need to use, and like
yeah,
headbutt the pad as if it's
yeah,
a punch." Um, so it was really quite entertaining, and then obviously getting used to not fighting with any gloves on, you'd
yeah,
sort of slowly start to sort of build up the strength in your
yeah,
wrists and sort of ligaments and tendons, reducing the size of your gloves to to fighting in MMA gloves, to then like wraps and tape, to then just wraps, to then hands. So by
yeah,
the time we got to the end of camp, like you felt good being able to punch with sort of no support
yeah,
around your fist and wrist.
yeah,
But it was definitely an experience, like
yeah.
100%. And we did all those old school press ups, on your knuckles, making sure
Oh
like
yeah,
you're pivoting those fists
yeah,
as you push yourself up. Bag work with no gloves, just to really try and condition it, because like bone on bone, like you really feel it, like
yeah,
so it is about like protecting your hands as well as much as possible.
definitely. So when it comes to the professional boxing, we won't be seeing any like like Josh Warrington, like any sneaky headbutts in there, will we?
I really hope I never land anything sneaky like that.
Yeah. They'll be coming back to this interview. That's what they'll be doing.
I mean,
Oh,
rewind.
yeah.
And yeah, like the intention's always to like, keep sport clean, right?
Yeah.
Um, yeah, never to intentionally throw any
Yeah.
elbows, headbutt,
Yeah.
kicks. Um, but yeah, and you know what? When I first started boxing, I thought spinning back fist was a punch. Because in my mind it was
Yeah.
any punch. And I remember
Yeah.
the first time I threw it, like, whoa, what was that?
Yeah.
And I was like, why
I
stop the
think
fight?
there's actually there's a good clip actually of you bringing that of Nick Diaz is boxing sparring someone and the guy throws a spinning back fist and it didn't end well for him. It didn't really end well for him. Yeah, but one thing moving on, one thing I did also get told. Obviously you are from Luton and same happens to be the same place as a controversial social media influencer Andrew Tate. I got told that you apparently sparred a couple rounds of it.
Yeah, so we used to actually, so we trained at the same gym, Storm Gym, under the same coach, Amir. And yeah, we used to spar together. He actually broke my nose. We were, I say playing this game, but when I did kickboxing, we had this game called Shark Tank where someone was in the middle for like the whole round, and everyone round the ring would change every 10 seconds. So
Yeah.
basically, you got like a very good beating up for three
Yeah, yeah,
minutes because everyone was like 10 seconds fresh on a rotation.
yeah,
And so there was Andrew Tate, who's like, what, plus 95 kilos.
yeah,
Another big lad called Lucas, who was like well over 100 kilos. And, and everyone was sort of like taking it in turns, and I was sort of like doing my best to fight them off. So
yeah,
yeah, we've shared the ring and several spars.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. What was it? What was it like training in Luton as well? Because I know that it is sort of on the rise in a sense. Obviously, someone like yourself, obviously from Luton, and Jordan Reynolds is another guy that's also from Luton as a professional boxer, and someone I get on well with, Linus Udofia. So it's sort of a nice contingent of people from Luton being quite successful in boxing.
Yeah, you know what? It's great to see um, all of the athletes from Luton on the rise. You know, you've even got Ticey Gallagher, who's another
Oh yeah, of
Luton
course.
female. You know, she's fighting for her world title soon. So to see all of that being elevated and, you know, the great stuff that everyone does for the community, um, you know, it's good. It's what Luton needs, is to have role models to inspire the youth to to achieve whatever dreams they are. And, you know, boxing's always great, especially, you know, very cathartic. It helps you get out
Yeah,
a lot of like aggression. If you've had a bad day, you know, it's really
yeah.
helpful for a multitude of reasons. And um, great to see it sort of rising more within Luton.
Definitely. And you just mentioned there about being a role model. How much emphasis would you say on being a female role model for girls that potentially want to get into combat sports, but also not for yourself, dealing with the adversity that you have dealt with, growing up, having this car crash, and also yourself that you're jungling so many things, working as well, having a degree, all these things that you're jungling. How much do you feel like you can be a positive role model for so many women and girls as well?
Yeah, you know what? I feel blessed to be a role model, you know, for the younger generation, not just girls, but you know, boys and girls, and pretty much anyone and everyone, in the sense that you can get to a high level in two professional careers parallel, you know, working for the HSBC full time as a global manager, and then also boxing professionally full time. You know, to really show that if you put the time in, the effort, and the hard work, like you can make your dreams come true, as cliche as that sounds.
Yeah,
But I wasn't born with any specific talent for martial arts. In fact, I was born with a sleeping disorder called narcolepsy,
yeah,
which, if anything, set me back.
yeah,
You know, so against all odds, to still be able to come out on top, it's, you know, that fire and that motivation that I hope just gives every other person that bit more encouragement to follow their dreams and, you know that one day all of the like fruits of their labor will pay off.
definitely. You just mentioned there about the sleeping disorder. What was that like dealing with it growing up? If you could elaborate on that, if that's right.
Yeah, so narcolepsy is just something that not many people are familiar with. And so it essentially at any point, so we could be talking, I could be walking down the street and
Yeah.
my brain would just switch off without me
Fucking
knowing.
hell.
And I'd just be out. So I might be like off the side of the road for like
Fucking hell.
anything from 20 minutes to several hours. And then I'd wake up and not know I'd been asleep. I'd literally have to be like, did I fall asleep? Like I wouldn't know.
Yeah.
Um, and like growing up as a kid, everyone was like, so good, you get to miss so much school, and
Yeah.
you know, that has that
Yeah.
novelty, but it wears off, and you're like, right, wow, so now I've missed my sats
Yeah.
because I was asleep through the whole thing. Now I'm in bottom set for everything at school, so I'm
Yeah.
gonna have to somehow try and catch up. You know, I wasn't allowed to go out with my friends and socialize
Yeah.
because, you know, I was a liability. Like, what is sort of the teenager friendship group going to do if I like fall asleep in the middle of the street? Like, it
Yeah.
will look
Yeah.
so dodgy if they try dragging me home, you know? So it
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
like,
Exactly.
you're
Yeah.
not going out, you'll just stay at home with
Yeah.
mum and dad. Um, you know, so it was difficult, and it meant that I had to put so much work in. Even to university, to start turning up to like lectures with
Yeah.
dictaphones, to record sessions,
Fucking hell.
knowing I'd
Jeez.
probably fall asleep, to then be able
Yeah.
to catch up
Yeah.
after. So it, you know, there was so much that would go on um, to sort of get through that. But even still, I've managed to do it, and so
Yeah.
like I
Yeah.
hope that encourages other people to
Yeah.
see that like it doesn't matter what adversity comes your way, like you can overcome it.
Yeah, I was just going to say that, like, you've been fighting all your life, really. It's not just been in the ring, but outside the ring as well. You've been fighting, so your will probably, no one can ever underestimate your will, I'd say. So, is that something you would credit yourself for? That you said, naturally, you wasn't sort of, you're a natural fighter in a way, just inside and outside the
Yeah, you know what, that's a really nice way to put it.
ring.
And it's almost that I fought, I learned to fight outside the ring
So
first, and now it's sort of like picking up that physical game to match it.
yeah,
So yeah, that was put nicely.
absolutely. Just as we close off this interview, obviously dealing with an injury now, we did speak a bit off camera. When is an ideal timeline for yourself to want to be back out in the ring?
Yeah, so for me, I'd love to be back out in the ring early next year, sort of like February time, would be really good. And yeah, have my first fight showcased on TNT Sports and under Queensberry promotion.
Absolutely, Nicola. I just want to say thank you for taking time to speak to me. I really, really enjoyed this interview. Really appreciate it, and it's good to get your story out there because it's definitely one that people can take a lot of inspiration from.
Yeah, I really appreciate that. Thanks, Lewis. It has been really great.
No worries. Thank you. Cheers. Appreciate it.